The text arrived 3 days before my wedding. Alex, we need to talk. I've proof Kate is cheating on you. It was from my sister Bethany, sent to my fiancé. Reading it over Alex's shoulder as his face went pale, I felt as if the ground had shifted beneath my feet. Alex showed me his phone wordlessly, his expression a mixture of confusion and concern. I stood frozen for a second, my eyes locked on the screen. Then I turned away, muttering something about needing a minute, and walked briskly to the bedroom. I closed the door behind me and leaned against it, heart hammering in my chest, trying to process what I'd just seen. My sister was accusing me and doing it behind my back. I'm Catherine, Kate to everyone except my mother, and that moment was the beginning of a storm I never saw coming. What Bethany had just set in motion would change everything, and not in the way she thought it would. Our relationship had always been complicated. Growing up, Bethany was the pretty one, the social butterfly who drew attention effortlessly, while I was the studious, reserved sister who planned everything meticulously. We developed a fragile peace over the years, but there were moments, subtle and not so subtle, that revealed the undercurrent of tension between us. Like the time she gave a toast at my graduation dinner that somehow turned into a story about her own achievements, or how she'd conveniently forget to pass along important messages from mutual friends. Until now, I'd always given her the benefit of the doubt. The proof arrived minutes later to Alex's phone. Screenshots of text messages between me and someone saved as babe in my contacts. Intimate conversations about meeting up at hotels, inside jokes, plans for when Alex would leave town for business trips. Alex's hands trembled slightly as he showed me, his eyes searching mine for an explanation. My stomach dropped for exactly 5 seconds before I noticed something odd about the messages. The typing style wasn't mine. I never used emojis in the middle of sentences, and I certainly never called anyone sweetie or hun. Alex had been with me for 4 years. He knew how I texted. I zoomed in on the screenshots. The battery percentage on the supposed Kate's phone screenshots was 47% in one image, then 82% in a supposedly later message from the same day. The cell carrier was wrong too. I used Verizon. These screenshots showed AT&T. These are fake, I told Alex, relief flooding through me when I saw him exhale. He knew me well enough to trust me, but the initial shock had been real. This is Bethany's doing. Why would your sister do this? Alex asked quietly. That was my sister's specialty, doing horrible things while casting herself as the hero. 3 months ago, when Alex had proposed with my dream ring, an emerald-cut diamond with small sapphires on either side, Bethany had been oddly quiet at our celebration dinner. Now I understood why. She'd been planning. Alex sent a simple reply. I know these are fake. Don't contact me again. He then blocked her number. I called my best friend Zoe. I need your help with something, I said simply. Bethany's making her move. What now? Zoe sighed. She'd witnessed Bethany's behavior for 20 years. Fake texts supposedly proving I'm cheating on Alex. Pretty elaborate ones. 3 days before your wedding. Classic Bethany timing. I laughed despite myself. Can you come over and bring your laptop? Zoe had been a computer forensics specialist before switching to cybersecurity consulting. If anyone could help me analyze these screenshots properly, it was her. An hour later, we sat at my kitchen table, the evidence displayed on Zoe's high-resolution monitor. These weren't just hastily photoshopped, Zoe said, zooming in on sections of the images. Someone used an actual text generator app. See these alignment issues? And the timestamps don't follow the proper format. There's an extra space after the colon. But they did a pretty convincing job for someone who doesn't know what to look for. So they're definitely fake? 100%. But that's not the interesting part. Zoe clicked through to metadata information. These screenshots were taken on an iPhone 13. Doesn't Bethany have an iPhone 13? Yes, I said slowly. She got it right after I did. Zoe nodded. And there's more. The creation timestamps show these were all made yesterday between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. My mouth felt dry. Bethany and I had lunch yesterday. She left early claiming she had a headache. Well, now you know what she was doing instead. Zoe leaned back. The question is, what are you going to do about it? What indeed? This wasn't a spontaneous act of jealousy. This was premeditated sabotage. And knowing my sister, screenshots were just the opening move. I need to prepare, I said, standing up. This is only the beginning. Alex was understandably furious when I showed him the detailed analysis of the fake texts. His face flushed with anger, then drained to a worrying paleness. Your sister has always been difficult, but this? He shook his head in disbelief. This is a whole new level of cruel. She's trying to break us up days before our wedding. I squeezed his hand. I know, and I'm betting she's not done. What do you mean? Bethany doesn't do things halfway. If you don't react the way she wants to these texts, she'll escalate. Alex ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I'd come to recognize as his way of processing stress. What do you think she'll do? If I had to guess, she'll start spreading rumors to our wedding guests, probably create more evidence. Boss, she sent those texts to you hoping you'd confront me in anger, maybe even call off the wedding. When that didn't work, she'll try another approach. I took a deep breath. And I think I know what we need to do. For the next day, we pretended to be having relationship trouble. Alex called his parents, saying he needed time to think. I texted a few close friends that there was trouble with the wedding, but I wasn't ready to talk about it. I even posted a vague sad face emoji on Instagram, something completely out of character for me, which guaranteed people would notice, and all the while that I was setting a trap. 2 days before the wedding, both our phones exploded with concerned messages. Apparently, Bethany had been reluctantly sharing the terrible news that she'd discovered my infidelity. She even showed people the fake texts, but now there were more of them. And according to my cousin Lisa, even a photo of me with another man that Bethany claimed was recent. I asked Lisa to forward everything to me. The new evidence was even sloppier than the first batch. The man in the photo with me was an old college friend who had moved to Australia 3 years ago. The picture was from my Facebook, timestamped 2018. Meanwhile, I'd enlisted Zoe's help to access Bethany's cloud backup, something I wouldn't normally do, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Bethany had used my mother's birthday as her password on everything since high school and never bothered to enable two-factor authentication. Amateur. What we found was beyond anything I'd expected. A folder labeled Kate's Wedding, containing all the fake screenshots in various editing stages, the text generator app receipt, and most damning of all, a document titled Timeline that outlined her entire plan to sabotage my relationship, starting 3 months ago when Alex proposed. But there was something else, something that made my blood run cold. In the same folder was a subfolder labeled Backup Plan, containing screenshots of conversations between Bethany and a man named Chris, dated from 6 months ago until just last week. The same Chris who was married to Alex's sister, Penny. My sister had been having an affair with my future brother-in-law. And it wasn't just any affair. According to their messages, it had started at my engagement party, when Bethany had deliberately targeted Chris after learning he'd be part of our wedding party. Perfect position to keep tabs on everything, she'd written to him. I sat staring at my laptop screen feeling sick. This wasn't just about sabotaging my wedding anymore. This was going to hurt Penny, who had been nothing but kind to me since Alex and I started dating. And their 2 young children would be caught in the crossfire. What are you going to do? Zoe asked quietly. I closed the laptop. I'm going to protect my wedding, and then I'm going to make sure Bethany never hurts anyone in our family again. The day before my wedding, Bethany showed up at my apartment unannounced, her expression a perfect mask of sisterly concern. Kate, honey, she said, trying to hug me. I stepped back. I've been so worried about you and Alex. Has he forgiven you yet? Or is he still believing those ridiculous lies you've told him about the texts being fake? Come in, Bethany, I said coldly. We need to talk. She followed me into the living room, where I had my laptop open on the coffee table. To my surprise, she didn't seem nervous, just smugly confident that her plan was working. I know this is hard, she said, sitting down and reaching for my hand. I moved it away. But Alex deserves better than someone who would cheat on him. Maybe calling off the wedding is the best thing. I studied her face, this person who shared my blood, who had been by my side through our parents' divorce, who had held my hand at our grandmother's funeral, the same person who had been systematically trying to undermine every good thing in my life since we were teenagers. Why do you hate me so much? I asked quietly. She blinked, momentarily thrown off script. What? I don't hate you. I'm trying to protect Alex. He's a good guy who deserves honesty. No, you're not. I turned my laptop toward her. On the screen was her own timeline document. You've been planning this for months. The color drained from her face. How did you? That's private. She made a grab for the laptop, but I pulled it away. Yes, it is private. Just like your affair with Chris is private. Does Penny know about that yet? Bethany went completely still, her eyes wide with genuine fear for the first time. You wouldn't. I wouldn't what? Tell the truth? Unlike you, I don't enjoy hurting people, but I will protect myself and the people I love. She stood up abruptly. You hacked my accounts. That's illegal. Actually, using your old password that you never bothered to change isn't hacking. But creating fake evidence to defame someone and intentionally damage their relationship, that might be. My sister's face contorted with an ugly mix of rage and panic. Nobody will believe you. I've already told everyone about your cheating. They're all just waiting for Alex to come to his senses and call off the wedding. I smiled thinly. Let's test that theory, shall we? I picked up my phone and dialed our mother. Kate? Mom answered on the first ring. Are you okay, honey? I'm fine, Mom. I'm here with Bethany, and I'd like to conference in a few people, if that's all right. Of course. One by one, I added Alex, his parents, and Penny to the call. Bethany watched in horror, shaking her head frantically. Kate, what's this about? Alex's father asked. I wanted to clear something up before tomorrow, I said calmly. Bethany has been showing people texts supposedly from me that suggest I've been unfaithful to Alex. Those texts are fake. She created them using an app and has been planning to sabotage our wedding for months. That's ridiculous, Bethany burst out. Kate's delusional. She's a cheater, and I can prove it. Really? I kept my voice level. With the text you generated yesterday? Or the photo from 2018 that you're claiming is recent? I have the originals of everything, Bethany. And I have your entire plan documented. There was a stunned silence on the call. Why would she do this? Alex's mother finally asked, her voice wavering with confusion. I took a deep breath. I hadn't wanted to expose the affair, especially not like this, but Bethany had forced my hand. There's something else you should all know. Bethany has been having an affair with Chris for the past 6 months. It started at our engagement party. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Penny's voice, small and filled with pain. Is this true? Of course not, Bethany said, but her denial lacked conviction. Kate's making this up because she's jealous of me. She's always been jealous. I have the messages between you and Chris, I said quietly. All of them, including the ones where you discuss using your position in the wedding party to gather information about us. You bitch! Bethany lunged at me, knocking over a lamp in the process. I jumped back, startled by her violence. What's happening? Mom demanded through the phone. Bethany just attacked Kate, Alex said, his voice tight with anger. He had been sitting quietly in the bedroom, listening to everything through the open door, ready to intervene if needed. Now he stepped into the living room, phone in hand. I saw it. My sister froze, suddenly aware that she had an audience for her meltdown. Bethany, our mother said, her voice shaking. Tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't try to ruin your sister's wedding. Bethany's face crumpled. For a moment, I thought she might actually break down and admit everything. Instead, she grabbed her purse and ran for the door. If any of you believe her over me, you're all idiots, she shouted before slamming it behind her. The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful, exactly as I'd hoped when we'd booked the venue a year ago. Despite the drama, or perhaps because of it, I felt strangely calm as my bridesmaids helped me into my dress. Bethany's absence was conspicuous. After she'd fled my apartment, she hadn't answered any calls or texts from family members. According to social media, she'd checked into a hotel in the next city over. Are you okay? Zoe asked as she helped arrange my veil. About Bethany, I mean. I considered the question carefully. I'm sad, I finally said. Sad that it came to this. Sad that she couldn't just be happy for me. But I'm not going to let her absence ruin today. Penny had asked to be excused from the bridal party, which I completely understood. Chris was nowhere to be seen either. Rumor had it that he'd packed a bag and left right after our conference call. I felt terrible for Penny and her children, but I reminded myself that I hadn't created this situation. I'd simply exposed the truth before more damage could be done. The ceremony was perfect, more meaningful somehow for having weathered the storm that preceded it. When Alex and I exchanged vows, promising to face life's challenges together, the words carried extra weight. At the reception, after dinner but before the dancing began, Alex clinked his glass for attention. We hadn't planned any speeches at this point, so I looked at him questioningly. I just want to say something, he said, standing and taking my hand. Kate, when I proposed to you, I promised that we would always face things together, as a team. Little did I know we'd be tested so soon. There was a murmur of knowing laughter from our guests. But watching you handle everything with such grace and strength only confirmed what I already knew, that I'm the luckiest man alive to have you as my wife. Tears pricked my eyes as applause filled the room. After everything that had happened, this moment felt like a victory, not just over Bethany's schemes, but over all the doubts and insecurities she'd tried to exploit. Later, as Alex and I swayed to our first dance, I caught sight of my mother watching us from her table. She looked happy but tired. The events of the past few days had taken their toll on her as well. I made a mental note to check in with her tomorrow to make sure she was really okay with everything that had happened with Bethany. Penny's asking about the messages, Alex murmured in my ear as we danced. She wants copies for her lawyer. I nodded against his shoulder. I'll send everything to her tomorrow. I paused. Do you think they'll be okay? Her and the kids? Eventually. She's stronger than she looks. As the evening wound down and guests began to depart, my phone buzzed with a text. I almost didn't check it, but something told me I should. It was from Bethany. Congratulations. I hope you're happy with yourself. I showed it to Alex, who frowned. Are you going to respond? I thought about it for a moment, then typed, I am happy, not because of what happened with you, but despite it. When you're ready to talk, really talk, let me know. I didn't expect a response, and I didn't get one. But as Alex and I left the reception amid a shower of rose petals, I felt at peace with how everything had played out. I had protected my relationship and exposed a painful truth, but I hadn't set out to destroy my sister. She had done that herself. Our honeymoon was a blissful 2 weeks in the Maldives, far away from family drama and wedding stress. We stayed in an overwater bungalow with a glass floor that revealed vibrant coral reefs teeming with tropical fish beneath us. During the day, we snorkeled in crystal clear waters, took sailing lessons from local fishermen, and explored nearby uninhabited islands. At night, we dined under the stars on private beaches, the soft lapping of waves providing a soundtrack to our conversations about the future. The seclusion was exactly what we needed, a chance to decompress and process the whirlwind of emotions from the wedding and its dramatic lead-up. There were moments watching the sunset paint the horizon in vivid oranges and pinks when I'd feel a twinge of sadness about Bethany. Not regret for what I'd done, but mourning for the relationship we could have had if jealousy hadn't poisoned it. I checked in with my mother every few days. Bethany still wasn't speaking to anyone in the family and had apparently taken an indefinite leave from her job. She'll come around, Mom said, though she didn't sound convinced. She just needs time to accept responsibility for what she did. I wasn't so sure. In all the years I'd known her, I'd never seen Bethany truly accept responsibility for hurting someone. There was always a justification, always someone else to blame. When we returned home, life settled into a new normal. Alex and I moved into our new house, sent thank you cards to wedding guests, and began the process of legally changing my last name. The drama with Bethany faded into the background as we focused on building our life together. Until 6 months later, when she showed up at our door unannounced. Can I come in? she asked, looking smaller and more subdued than I'd ever seen her. Gone was the sleek, polished appearance she usually maintained. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore minimal makeup. Alex tensed beside me, protective as always. I'm not sure that's a good idea. Please, Bethany said, her voice barely above a whisper. I need to talk to both of you. I exchanged a glance with Alex, then nodded. Okay, but any signs of drama and you're out. We sat in awkward silence in our living room for several minutes before Bethany finally spoke. I've been in therapy, she said, staring at her hands, twice a week since the wedding. She looked up at me. I'm not here to make excuses. What I did was unforgivable. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to understand why I did it. I said nothing, waiting. The therapist thinks I've had these competitive feelings toward you my whole life, that I've been defining myself in opposition to you instead of figuring out who I am. She twisted her fingers together nervously. She says it's not unusual with siblings, but most people grow out of it. I never did. And the affair with Chris? Alex asked, his voice tight. Bethany flushed with shame. That was, God, I don't even know how to explain it. It wasn't love or even attraction, really. It was like I wanted to take something from your world, something that would hurt you both if you knew. It was sick. She blinked rapidly. Penny's divorcing him, by the way. She deserves better. Yes, she does, I agreed quietly. I lost my job, Bethany continued. Apparently, sabotaging your sister's wedding and having an affair with her future brother-in-law raises some red flags about judgment and ethics. She gave a humorless laugh. I'm staying with a friend until I can find a new position, probably in another city. Part of me felt vindicated hearing about these consequences. They were, after all, the direct result of her own actions. But another part, the part that remembered building blanket forts with her when we were kids and helping her study for exams in high school, felt a deep sadness. Why are you telling us all this? I finally asked. Because I owe you an apology. A real one. She looked up, meeting my eyes directly. I'm sorry, Kate. And Alex. What I did was cruel and selfish and completely unjustifiable. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I recognize how wrong I was. The room fell silent again. Alex's hand found mine, squeezing gently in support. I appreciate you saying that, I said eventually. I really do. But trust takes time to rebuild if it can be rebuilt at all. Bethany nodded. I know. I'm not asking for anything right now except maybe the possibility of a conversation someday. When you're ready, if you're ever ready. As she stood to leave, she reached into her purse and pulled out a small wrapped package. This was supposed to be your wedding gift. I never gave it to you, for obvious reasons. She placed it on the coffee table. It's yours regardless of what happens between us. After she left, Alex and I sat in silence for a long time, processing the unexpected visit. Do you think she's genuinely changed? Alex finally asked. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to believe she has. The rest of me remembers all the times she's hurt people and then seemed sorry afterward, only to do it again. I picked up the package and carefully unwrapped it. Inside was a delicate silver photo frame containing a picture of Bethany and me as children, arms around each other, gap-toothed smiles beaming at the camera. On the back was an engraving. Sisters by blood, friends by choice. The irony wasn't lost on me. I placed the frame on a shelf. Not prominently displayed, but not hidden away either. A reminder of what was, what could have been, and what might still be, if Bethany truly had learned from her darkest moment. The path to forgiveness would be long and uncertain. Trust, once shattered, couldn't be instantly restored, no matter how sincere the apology. But as I looked at that childhood photo, I realized that I didn't want hatred or resentment to define our relationship forever. Sometimes, I told Alex as we turned out the lights that night, the most difficult people in our lives are the ones who force us to discover how strong we really are. And I had discovered just how strong I could be. Strong enough to protect my happiness when threatened, strong enough to expose painful truths when necessary, and maybe someday, strong enough to forgive the person who had tried to take it all away. Over the next year, Bethany and I began the slow process of rebuilding some semblance of a relationship. It started with occasional text messages, then coffee meets every few weeks where conversation was stilted but civil. She had moved to Seattle for a new job and seemed committed to her therapy. Distance, in this case, proved helpful. It gave us both space to heal without the constant reminder of what had happened. During one of our coffee meetings, almost 18 months after the wedding, Bethany mentioned she was seeing someone new. "He's kind," she said simply. "And he knows everything. About what I did to you, about the therapy, all of it. I wanted to start honest this time." I studied her face as she spoke, looking for signs of the old Bethany, the competitive gleam in her eye, the slight curl of her lip that always betrayed her insincerity. I saw none of it. Instead, there was a humility that had never been there before. "I'm glad," I said, and was surprised to find I meant it. When Alex and I celebrated our second anniversary, we invited Bethany to join us and a few close friends for dinner. She arrived with her boyfriend, Mark, a soft spoken engineer with kind eyes who clearly adored her. She seemed nervous at first, especially around Alex, but relaxed as the evening progressed. At one point, I caught her watching me across the table with an expression I couldn't quite read. When our eyes met, she didn't look away. "What?" I asked quietly while the others were engaged in conversation. "You're happy," she said simply. "Really happy. I don't think I ever let myself see that before." It wasn't a grand declaration or a dramatic moment of redemption, but in those 4 words, I heard something I'd been waiting for all my life. My sister truly seeing me, without the filter of jealousy or competition. Later that night, as Alex and I got ready for bed, he asked, "Do you think you'll ever fully trust her again?" I considered the question seriously. "Probably not the way I did when we were kids," I admitted. "But I think we can build something new, something better, maybe, because it'll be based on truth instead of pretense." He nodded, pulling back the covers. "For what it's worth, I think she's really trying. And I'm proud of you for giving her that chance." 3 years after our wedding, Bethany called with news. She and Mark were engaged. There was no competitive edge to her announcement, no subtle implication that her ring was bigger or her proposal story more romantic than mine had been. Just simple happiness, and surprisingly, a request. "Would you be my maid of honor?" she asked, a hint of uncertainty in her voice. "I'd understand if you don't want to after everything, but it would mean a lot to me." I felt a lump in my throat. "I'd be honored," I said, and meant it. Standing beside her on her wedding day, watching her exchange vows with a man who knew her darkest moments and loved her anyway, I thought about how far we'd come. The road to healing hadn't been straight or easy, but we'd traveled it together, step by step. During the reception, she pulled me aside. "Remember when you said that when I was ready to really talk to let you know?" She smiled softly. "I think I'm finally ready. Not today, it's a bit busy." We both laughed. "But soon." I hugged her then, a real hug without reservation or caution. "I'm ready too," I whispered. Some wounds never fully heal, and some betrayals can never be completely forgotten. But standing there with my sister on her wedding day, I realized that the most remarkable strength isn't found in exposing secrets or enacting justice, but in the courage to begin again after everything has fallen apart. And both of us, in our own ways, had found that courage.